The Gophers start the year off with a very tough to swallow loss. We're going to break down the North Carolina takeaways. How can the Gophers improve for this one, and what were the positives?
You are Locked On Golden Gophers, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Gopher fans? You're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. Even when it is hard to talk about the Gophers, we are going to make sure to get on here and get into it. Now, with the holiday weekend and whatnot, it was a little weird with the schedule, but we are back at it. We are talking about the takeaways from the North Carolina game. We're going to talk about a quick recap of the game, things we learned, things we didn't like, things we maybe liked. Was there much to like in this game? We're going to dive into it all today. And then we're going to talk about 3 immediate changes that need to take place in week 2. And finally, 3 positives to build off of moving forward. So we're going to get into a lot of the nitty-gritty details. So if you like that, if you like Gophers football, even after a loss that should not have been a loss, which we are so sick of hearing as Gophers fans, so sick of saying as Gophers fans. Hopefully we don't have to say it again this season. Hopefully they got it out of the way right in the big bang beginning of the season, and hopefully it's nowhere to go but up from this one. But we're going to dive into it all each and every week regardless. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for tapping in. Thank you to all the everydayers who tap into the show each and every week. This week, the layout is going to be the breakdowns today. Then we're going to move on to prepping for Rhode Island. We'll talk about the keys and the make or break, and the next day after that. And finally, we will do predictions with your boy, Tristyn Spann-Ford. So hopefully you are ready to hit subscribe. Hopefully you're ready to tap in. Hopefully you're following wherever you get the podcast, at Spotify, iTunes, you name it, and leave a 5-star review so others can find the show. If you ever have questions, if you ever have thoughts, if you ever just need to vent, drop it in the comments over on YouTube. I take a look at those. I try to react. I try to respond. And also, I love the conversations between Gopher fans. So let's keep that up. But let's talk about this week 1 loss. The Gophers fall in a close one, 19-17, yet another game that we have said it should have been a win. It should have been a victory. And it was dropped by the Gophers. And I'm just so sick of saying that over the years. After Bowling Green, after Northwestern last year, after Illinois, after Purdue in 2022, when Mo Ibrahim was injured, there's so many games each and every season that we're just like, we should have won the game. We should have won the game. There was no excuse for losing. And usually those are the games that end up coming to bite us in the butt later in the season. We've seen it happen with the Gophers in 2022 and losing out on the division title. We've seen it in 2019. Even in a great 11-2 season, we still saw it happen to the point where it hurt us from getting to Indy. And now you have it happening right away in the beginning of the season against a North Carolina team that went from having quarterback glory to quarterback horror. And so it's just like, how can we continue to do this and continue to do the same thing over and over and over, expecting different results? That is the definition of insanity, folks. And I am sick of being an insane Gopher fan. So what has to change? That's the biggest question. Now you look at this game and you see that, yes, North Carolina is seen as a better program than Bowling Green, than Northwestern, than Illinois, at least as of late. But this North Carolina team was not great. Heck, they might not have even been good. Their defense held its own. Their defense was impressive. Their running back is an all-world, all-American type running back. So they have a ton of talent on this team still, but the quarterback play was ugly. The offensive line play was ugly. The receiver play was nothing to write home about. And yet the Gophers still find a way to drop it. This North Carolina team was not good, and that is maybe putting it lightly, but Omarion Hampton is good, and Omarion Hampton was the whole offense for the North Carolina Tar Heels. 30 attempts, 129 rush yards, 5 receptions for 17 yards, accounting for 58% of the North Carolina Tar Heels offensive production. He was almost 60% of their total yardage production on offense, and that is crazy. That is something that you would hope you could take away throughout the game, seeing as he was the only thing they had going for them, especially as you got into the second half. The only things that went well for this North Carolina team, I mean, aside from defense, because their defense got home 5 times on the Gophers quarterback, but you had Omarion Hampton and you had the kicker. Those were the two things that held this team into contention for this game. Even with the Gophers playing abysmal, those two elements were enough to walk away with a win with a team who was playing absolutely not at their best. Now, you look at the quarterback side of things for North Carolina. Their starting quarterback, Max Johnson, son of Brad Johnson, shout out to him. I mean, he had a terrible injury. I believe he broke his leg, which is super unfortunate, especially in the beginning of a new season after just transferring to a new school and what have you. He wasn't playing relatively well, 14 of 23 for 105 yards, no touchdowns through the air. I believe he had the rushing touchdown, the only touchdown for the North Carolina Tar Heels. But regardless, his longest pass on the day was 13 yards. So that should tell you right there, the Gophers' pass defense was balling out, especially at that point. And then he gets hurt. He's done for the year, and their backup comes in, Connor Harrell. We've talked about him on the show before. I thought he was the third string, but Jacoby Criswell apparently transferred back just to be the third string on this North Carolina team. But Connor Harrell comes back, and he saw one play that had a long of 20 or 32 yards, the longest pass play of the day. It was more of a broken play with a guy up the sideline that was just lost in coverage. And he goes 2 of 4 for 34 yards. So that one play was literally basically all of everything he did in that game. He could run a little bit, but even then he almost caved the game right back to the Gophers fumbling prior to the North Carolina Tar Heels trying to hit their game-leading field goal, and the Gophers somehow don't come up on top of it, even though they had the next two closest men to the football. It was just anything that could go wrong in this game for the Gophers basically did. But mad props to the North Carolina kicker. He had a dog mentality. He was like, I am going to hit every single kick that is thrown my way. I will not miss. And he showed. He went 4 for 4, making a 29, a 52, a 42, and a 45, and the 52 being a new career high for him. So look, that's props. That's mad love. The kicker came to play, and it ended up being the difference for North Carolina in this matchup. Now, that said, this was another case of Minnesota playing it safe, too safe, and then hurting itself with its own errors and play calling being too cute and just downright dumb. So we're looking at this Gophers game, and there's a point where this Gophers team gets into the red zone. They're on like the 9 or 10 yard line. It's 2nd and 10 from the 10 yard line, and all of a sudden we run the ball. We get 1 yard. So now it's 3rd and 9 from the 9 yard line in goal, trying to get a score. And the Gophers are like, 3rd and 9? 3rd and 9? We should probably run the ball. We should run the ball on 3rd and 9, get another 1-2 yards, and have to kick a field goal. And to make matters worse, this Gophers team misses the 27-yard field goal. Like when I say that everything that could have went bad did, it did, and then some. But that comes on to play calling. Why are we not taking shots? This is North Carolina. This is a team that isn't showing you that they are a next tier North Carolina. This isn't a Drake May North Carolina. This is put some points on the board, and that might be enough to win this whole game. But the Gophers are like, let's play it safe. Let's run the ball. Let's keep it in their hands. And you know what? We don't need to go for the score. We've got a kicker on our team who can get it done. And you know what? I had a lot of trust in the kicker, and I still have trust in the kicker moving forward. But this was clearly a bad day for the kicker. So it's just like, why not take a shot? Why not get your offense going? It was just the Gophers being too subtle, too safe, and too cute. Now, on top of that, there were other things that hurt this Gophers team. 6 penalties, 3 of them that erased a sack on defense, that erased a fumble recovery on defense, and that ended up erasing a 3rd down stop on defense, giving them new life on the offense to eventually go and get a field goal. So those little things, those little penalties came back to hurt the Gophers in critical moments because it kept drives going. It took away opportunities that would have been in the red zone. That fumble recovery would have been in scoring position for the Gophers. And then on top of that, you have another late game penalty in the final drive where you're trying to push the ball down the field to get into field goal opportunity or score and win the game. And you get a huge run, and all of a sudden you get a holding call, and that pulls it back, and it also puts you in a weird position on the field, and you end up missing the final field goal due to the position you were at on the field, the kicker pushing it a little bit too far, and what have you. So overall, this was some of the most undisciplined football I have seen from this Gophers team in the 3 years that I've covered them. The Gophers have been a team that has been some of the best when it comes to not getting penalties, especially in 2021, 2022. They were one of the best teams in the entire country in not getting penalties. And yet this year in game 1, penalties absolutely shot themselves in the foot. And it happened last year too. So what is going on with the discipline of this Gophers football team? Now, predictable play and calling. If the fans can guess your run pass play, then the other teams can too. And we were having our quarterback do five-step drops. Ron Johnson brought this up on the live postcast after the game. Our quarterback kept having to do 5-step drops. Longer developing plays, things that were just taking time to get going. But this defense, with Jeff Collins leading the way, former head coach at Georgia Tech, now the defense coordinator at North Carolina, sending sim pressures, and getting the Gophers on their heels to the tune of 5 sacks against this quarterback. Why wouldn't we switch at some point and get to the quick game? Because they were stacking the box and they were not letting the longer plays develop. So why not get to the quick passing game sooner? But we don't see the Gophers go to the quick passing game, the 3-step drops, the quick reads, and what have you, until the final drive of the game. And guess what? The final drive of the game was the Gophers' best and only bright spot as an offensive unit, in my opinion. Now, yes, there was a little bit in the second quarter with running the ball, but the biggest bright spot for the Gophers in this game offensively came in the final drive. This is where Max Brosmer showed, oh, look, he can drop dimes. This is where we got some big runs, even though one got called back on a holding penalty. This is where the Gophers started to do things that looked like a capable offense, but it was too little too late. But when you're looking at that final drive, Minnesota finally goes to the quick pass game. In that final drive, they find a rhythm and they move the ball. In the fourth quarter, Max Brosmer went 7 for 10 for 88 yards in the fourth quarter. In the first 3 quarters combined, he went 6 for 12 for 78 yards. So you just can't have that. But it's like, why is it taking the Gophers play calling 50 plus minutes to decide, let's adjust and try something different on offense, as opposed to, look, our offense is perfect. We did the breakdown perfect. Our game plan perfect. Let's just keep with it, stick with it. It'll open up. No, it didn't open up, and you lost the game for it. So that is not okay. On top of that, your QB was skittish in the first 3 quarters. I like Max Brosmer. I have high hopes for Max Brosmer. I still think he can get it done. But again, play calling could have fixed this, but you could see the early jitters, and the offensive coordinator didn't do any favors to help him get into a rhythm, to help him establish confidence. And in year one, and now in this one game that we've seen with Greg Harbaugh as the offensive coordinator, we haven't seen him get his players in rhythm and gain confidence. Not with Ethan, not with Chris Bell, not with Tristyn Spann-Ford, not with Max Brosmer in game one. Get your guys easy touches, get your guys confidence, get your guys in rhythm, let them create, and then watch the progress and the growth and the swagger come alive. But that has been a flaw with offensive coordinator Greg Harbaugh. Then you give up 5 sacks and you have 2 missed field goals. All of that spells a loss for the Gophers. Now, the Gophers defense did everything it could in this one, and the offense was absolute no-show. But the Gophers defense had a forced fumble after the missed field goal. It was overturned by a hold. They had a forced fumble after the Brosmer fumble. UNC recovered. They held UNC to 1 touchdown and 4 field goals, and they had an interception that was nearly returned for a touchdown, and they almost had a second interception that was just dropped by Zaquan Bryan. He'll get the next one. I believe in that. But had 2 sacks. They had 4 pass breakups, but they weren't without flaws of their own. They were credited with 19 missed tackles. You cannot miss that many tackles, especially when 12 of those 19 missed tackles came on their best player in Omarion Hampton. So there was a lot of things that need to be cleaned up for this Gophers team, but in the end, it comes up short, and now it has to claw its way back into the win column next week against an FCS opponent, Rhode Island. Now, Minnesota, unfortunately, was the only Big Ten team to lose in week 1 of the college football season. You're probably not going to hear the end of that for the whole week. Now we have to move on. We've talked about the game as a whole, but let's just discuss 3 immediate changes that need to be made in week 2, and then 3 positives to build off of. That's what's coming up next. First, I want to talk to you about our friends over at Ultimate Football, College Football Head Coach. This is the app that you absolutely have to get your hands on, because Gophers fans, I am telling you, if you want to take a moment to just get in on the action and be able to make the right calls and the right decisions and what have you, then you're going to want to download the Ultimate College Football Head Coach app. It's an amazing game and a simulation to get you to step into the shoes of the head coach and lead your college football team and get them to the glory, get them to the championship. Can you imagine being the head coach of the Golden Gophers? Well, now you can go and you can fix those mistakes. And not only do you get to play NCAA on your sticks, on the PlayStation, Xbox, what have you, but you can do even better by using the free app Ultimate College Football Head Coach on your mobile device and take it wherever you go. And that's what I really love about this game, that you are responsible for calling the offensive plays so you can fix the mistakes that the Gophers can't seemingly get out of their own way with. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, but shape the future and the legacy of your program. So the Ultimate College Football Head Coach is an app that's completely free, and the best part, it has no ads. It's 100% playable offline. You can play on the go as you want, when you want. And of course, we have a special offer for you, the listeners of Locked On Golden Gophers. You can use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB in all caps and inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk and you'll get your team off to a strong start. So again, download the Ultimate College Football Head Coach app, or you can go to ultimate-cfb.com. Just look it up in the app stores or go to ultimate-cfb.com. Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Begin your coaching legacy today. All right, Gophers fans, we're going to dive into 3 immediate changes that the Gophers need to make in week 2. No questions, no ifs, no ands, no buts. You got to do it or you are going to be in trouble, even against an FCS school, which we've seen some of these other schools struggle with a little bit to kick off the year. So the first one that you have to do, the first thing that needs to be changed is that you do not settle for running on Rhode Island. Do not settle for just running the ball, because you know you can win this game just running the ball. We know that. We've seen it against Eastern Michigan last year. We've seen it against Louisiana last year. We've seen it against other teams every single year, especially an FCS type opponent. Western Illinois 2 years ago. You can't just run the ball, get the win, because that's not going to help you in the long scheme of this Gopher season. And if you can't help yourself now, you are going to hurt yourself later. So do not settle for just running the ball. You need to figure out this passing game. You need to get Max Brosmer confident. You need to have better play calling from your offensive coordinator in calling the right plays and making the right adjustments and trying new things out that you shouldn't be trying against a power conference opponent. This is the game where you have to make it happen. And on top of that, if you lose this game or play it even close, it's embarrassing, because Max Brosmer played this Rhode Island team with New Hampshire and they lost in overtime, but he threw for like 300 to 400 yards on this Rhode Island team. And now he has a power conference team surrounding him. He has a Big Ten team surrounding him. And if you can't get him numbers, then that says more about you as the offensive coordinator. That says more about you as this coaching staff. So you absolutely have to be passing this ball, even if you are up big. Fix your passing game, fix your offense, get your crap together. I would have said a different word, but we don't do that here at Locked On Golden Gophers. That is point number 1. Do not settle for just running the ball. Now, number 2, you have to clean up the penalties. In 2021, 2022, like I said, the Gophers were one of the least penalized teams in the country. Sloppy play has already cost the Gophers their first game of the year, and if they can't figure it out, it will not be the last game that it costs them on the season. So you can't have them, especially in the critical downs. You can't have it on a 3rd down where you get a stop and all of a sudden they get a fresh first down. You can't have it when you get a turnover and capitalize on a turnover, putting your team into a scoring position and it's erased. You cannot have it in those situations. You can't have it when you're driving to score in the final waning moments of the game. You have to clean up the penalties, plain and simple. If you don't do that, it will shoot you in the foot in these later games against UCLA, against Illinois, against Rutgers, where you might have a chance at getting a dub. But if you are playing with penalties, chalk it up. It's game over, and it's going to be a long season. So if the Gophers can't clean up the penalties, it's going to be an issue. They need to make that change right away. The final 3rd thing that the Gophers have to make a change immediately heading into week 2 is the missed tackles. Plain and simple. You were credited with 19 missed tackles in this game, and 12 of them were forced by one player. If you can't figure out how to take away one player and get through your tackling fundamentals and your tackling principles to bring players down, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's the standards and the keys of defense. And so in game one, you missed 19 tackles, 12 of the 19 on their running back. If you cut that number in half, if you cut it down to 10 missed tackles or 9 missed tackles, you probably win the game. You probably drastically cut their running production because their running back isn't breaking extra tackles and getting extra yards and getting extra first downs, which is keeping drives alive. If you drastically cut those missed tackles down, you cut the running production down, you cut the first down opportunities down, you get them to punt, and you have less longer drives against your defense, keeping them on the field longer and gassing them out. You have to cut down on the missed tackles. It's not just because of a missed tackle and how critical it can be, but it cuts down on the drives, it cuts down on the successful third downs, and it helps get the ball back into your offense. So Minnesota has to clean up the missed tackles, they have to clean up the penalties, and they cannot settle for just running the ball against Rhode Island. Those are the three immediate critical changes that have to take place in week 2. Otherwise, we could be in for a very, very bad and very long Gophers season. Now, next, we're going to wrap up today's show by talking about 3 positives from this game to build off of moving forward. And you might be like, Kane, bro, there ain't 3 positives to go off in this one. But I got 3 positives. We're going to dive into them. What you need to build on coming up next. First of all, I got to talk about our friends over at 5 Hour Energy because, look, y'all, I don't know if you've noticed this yet. I think I've mentioned it in some shows. I've mentioned it on Twitter, but your boy has a newborn. Your boy is not getting any sleep. This man is still waking up in the middle of the night, and I love him with all of my heart. But I don't get as much sleep as I probably need. My wife doesn't get as much sleep as she probably needs. And now to keep us going, 5 Hour Energy has us covered. So whether it's before a workout, whether it's before a to-do list, whether it's having a newborn, 5 Hour Energy will get you in the zone. And they will keep you going. And with 0 sugar and a convenient portable size, it's perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. On top of that, the 5 Hour Energy website has flavors galore. So if you need something more specific than you can find out there at your local retailers or your gas stations or what have you, you can go on the website and look at watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and so much more. There's a flavor for everyone. You can try them all. And on top of that, on the site, you even have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose the flavors and it's delivered right to your door. So 5 Hour Energy is the brand hardworking people like you have trusted for over 20 years. They've been around for over 20 years to give you energy, keep you alert, get you that energized feeling that you need to get through a busy, hectic day. So you're definitely going to want to stock up with money-saving multi-packs to make sure you never run out of the delicious, energizing 5 Hour Energy shots. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, you can get some 5 Hour Energy product today, and you can even use promo code LOCKEDONCFB. All caps, that's Locked On CFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid through September 30th, so you got to get it before the month is over, and it cannot be used with other promotions. But go to 5hourenergy.com today and take advantage with promo code LOCKEDONCFB. All right, Gophers fans, we're going to talk about the 3 things to build off of moving forward from this North Carolina loss. It was gut-wrenching. It was hurtful. It was disappointing. You can throw so many negative adjectives, and it probably describes this game. But there are 3 positives that I think we can build off of moving forward, not only against Rhode Island, but in the long term of things to try and get on the positive side of the season, to try and get back in the win column, try and get into the middle or upper pack of the Big Ten, because they're not there right now. So those 3 things for me is, first of all, building off of the final offensive drive. Now, like I said, Max Brosmer in the first 3 quarters of the game was 50% throwing with a 78 total yards. Then you go to the 4th quarter, where most of it came in the final drive, but Max Brosmer went 7 for 10, 70%, quite the difference overall for 88 yards, all in that 1 quarter. So overall, if you can get that type of adjustments going, that is going to help you out. It not only gets the ball out of his hands faster, it allows your offensive line to thrive and do better in their areas and not give up the 5 sacks that the Gophers took in this one. It allows the defenses to not be able to cover for, or I guess they still have to cover for a shorter amount of time, but regardless, the Gophers receiving options, a lot of them have speed. A lot of them have route running abilities. Christian Driver showed he can be a very quick player. Daniel Jackson is a beast, straight up. And that's the one thing that hopefully the Gophers continue to build on, is because in that drive and in the successful drives in the Gophers offense that they did have in that North Carolina matchup, Daniel Jackson was a key featured player in those moments. So you have to find a way to get the ball in Daniel Jackson's hands by any means necessary. That man could have 3 inches of separation, and I'm trusting him to get it either in his hands or make sure the defender does not come up with it. Daniel Jackson is a go-to player. The dude is special. The dude needs more targets. The dude needs more plays, literally built for him. But Daniel Jackson can be a difference maker for this Gophers offense. And they need to continue to build on what they did in that final offensive drive, using the quick game, getting the ball out of Max Brosmer's hands fast, allowing him to dissect the defense at the line and make them pay for it rather quickly, as opposed to these long developing plays where the defense, you're hoping that they can't defend for too long and somebody comes open. But the thing is, if they're sending pressure and it's getting home to us, you're not going to have the time to let those plays develop and get the defense on their heels. It's not going to happen. So get them in the quick game, make them adjust. Then when they start adjusting for the quick game, hopefully something bigger will pop open. You can't do the same old stuff over and over and over. But that final offensive drive was promising, and hopefully the Gophers can continue to build off of it. Now, point number 2 that I think they can continue to build off is the defense played strong for 3/4 of this game. The only true blemish was the penalties and the missed tackles. If you can erase the missed tackles or even cut them in half, that's going to go a long way for this defense. But it's a defense that finished tied for 46th in total defense. So it was a top 50 defense in the first week. And that's with a lot of these other teams playing pipsqueaks and cupcakes and all these things. The Gophers had a power conference opponent, and they were able to keep themselves in the top 50 on defense, total defense. Now, the big thing that separated them from not being even in the top 30 was the run defense. You have to improve on it. They were 87th in run defense because Omari and Hampton just blew us up. But then you had them 18th in the pass defense game. I think overall, you look at those 3 numbers, and then they were 76th in scoring defense, again, because a lot of other big programs were playing FCS schools and G5 schools and holding them to 0 points and scoring 70. Like, of course, you're not going to come out of week 1 being a high scoring defense if you even give up 19 points. So playing Rhode Island next week, or this upcoming week, all of these numbers should improve. The total defense number should improve. The pass defense number could improve to a top 15 number. The run defense should improve. Hopefully you can get back in the top 50 there. And the scoring defense, hopefully you can hold them to a shutout and really improve on the scoring defense. Make your scoring defense look a little bit more elite. But overall, these next 2 games should provide opportunities for the Gophers to continue to build on those defensive numbers, look better as a holistic team. But even if you look at the defensive scoring grades, some of the best players, the highest graded players from PFF, were on this defense. Maverick Baranowski was the team high grade of an 80.4, which is an elite grade on PFF. Maverick Baranowski played well. Ja Joyner, grade of 77.5. Giante McMillan, grade of 76.5. Those 3 we're in the upper tier category of PFF grades. Now the average is 65. So playing above average is still good. Zaquan Bryan, 69.1. Coleman Bryson, 69.1. Ethan Robinson, 67.3. Anthony Smith, 67.1. Justin Wally, 66.8. All of those players played above average on defense. So if you can continue to build on that, get those players swagger, get those players confidence, build up the chemistry of this defense, I think this defense can be special. But you have to clean up the missed tackles, and you have to clean up the penalties. You take those away, I'm saying this defense plays well for 4 quarters of the game, and that's where you can be a difference maker. So that's another positive to build off of, is the defense and the success and flashes they showed. The final thing to build off of for the Gophers moving forward is a running back room that was missing its head lead dog. Darius Taylor, he's supposedly close. He was supposedly on the verge of playing in this North Carolina game, and look, clearly they needed him. This is a dub if Darius Taylor is playing. Even with the ugly play and what have you, Darius Taylor is making this a victory. But you found out Marcus Major can be a lead dog. He can get in there. He can be a complimentary. He can be a power back. He can make a big play. So you pair him with Darius Taylor. Hopefully the sky is the limit for this running back room. And that is even with Jordan Newman not really getting much touches. I think he had 2, and C.A. Bangura, who has been talked about all spring and what have you, didn't get a single touch. You have some depth in this running back room that should have you at least confident in knowing your best player, who is your best player on the team, especially offensively, coming back. Look, this run game can be extremely promising, which should pick up the offensive efforts, which hopefully can help open up the pass game and what have you. So Darius Taylor missing is a big thing, but it can't be the key excuse. And that's going to do it for us on today's show of Locked On Golden Gophers. Now, tomorrow we're prepping for Rhode Island. We're going to dive into what their first matchup looked like, what happened when Max Brosmer played this team, and so much more. If you want to hear about it, be sure to hit subscribe over on YouTube, and I'll see you then. Roll the boat, Sky Mago Gophers, as always, and please don't forget to hit subscribe.